Alright, what is up YouTube? My name is Gage Williston and my channel is called Disengage Average. So everything's about improving your life, getting out of your average day routine, either through fitness or, from what I'm going to show you today, self-help books and books that help expand your consciousness or just help your day-to-day life and how you go about things. So the book I'm reviewing today is one of my favorite self-help books, one of the very first self-help books I've ever read. And it is called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. This is How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. This book has a very special place in my heart. Like I said, it was one of the very first self-help books I've ever read. And yeah, it got me through a lot of hard times, a lot of mental barriers and a lot of mental blocks. It also introduced me to a lot of new ideas that I was never presented before about, like, increasing your vibration, tuning into like what's positive and what's the driving force of what's, I guess, pushing humanity forward. And these were ideas that I never really, tapped into or really understood until picking up this book and really diving deep into, I guess, who you are and what goes on in the world around you and why certain people are successful and why people tend to fail when they hit certain blocks. But anyway, this book, it's divided into 5 parts. Each part kind of hones in on a certain aspect of the book. I'll tell you which each part is. So part 1 is just the introduction, and it kind of goes into depth about like what this book's about or going to be about. And part 1 really hones in on how you got this way. So it really shows you why you are the way you are and why you do certain things. Because I don't know about you or whoever's watching this, but I know before getting introduced into self-help or just self-improvement in general, certain things would happen to me, and I was always like, why is this always happening to me? This is, it seems like everybody else has got it together except for me. But going through this section, you kind of realize that it is a common theme among people. Some people are lucky, some people just naturally just kill it at life, and props to them. You do you. But for anything like me, you struggled a lot. But books like this, they definitely helped you along and have a better understanding, and ultimately led to better success. Anyway, so that's part 1. Part 2 is how to embrace your inner badass. So it's all about loving who you are, finding out what makes you tick, and like basically not caring about what others think and really honing in on what your skills are. And then part 3 is how to tap into the mother lode. This is something that honestly changed the game for me. She really goes into depth on, like, I guess, how all religions kind of stem from this same kind of point of tapping into a higher consciousness, a higher energy. And she puts it in the phrases of, like, frequencies and almost like tuning into the right frequency for whatever your goals are. And she really puts it in a really fun, entertaining way. Jen Sincero, she's a really great author as far as, this is the only book I've read from her, but as you'll see, like, when you pick up this book, there's no bullshit. It's in the title, you're gonna be a badass, and she's gonna show you how you are badass. So she doesn't hold back on the way she expresses things. It's very to the point, very real, very entertaining. Like I said, she's a very good writer and like knows how to, tap into your inner badass. So anyway, that's part 3. She really goes into depth about that. I'll go into more depth on each of the parts within this review, but this is just kind of an intro for it. And part 4 is how to get over your BS already. And BS, it's kind of like, I don't know the word for it. Maybe dichotomy? Basically, BS has 2 different meanings. She calls it the big snooze, but it's also bullshit, to say it frankly. So she goes into depth about like when you finally decide to go for whatever your dream is, whatever your goal is, there's gonna be a whole lot of BS in your way. And basically there's like the subconscious, I guess, attachment to all your different fears and all your different waves of being that she really goes into depth about. Like, basically you're gonna go through some BS before you get to your ultimate goal. And she has like all like these different stories about like clients that she's had and like all their wild stories of how all the BS that they had to go through. But looking back on it now, they're like, oh, I wouldn't change anything because it led me to where I'm at now. But that BS, it's gonna get to you, and you know, I feel like everybody experiences that at some point. But yeah, so she goes to depth about that. And then the last part is part 5, and it's how to kick some ass. And yeah, so she really goes into depth on like, okay, here's the active steps to kicking ass. Like she shows you like basically like all the different things that are going to be, I guess, like the roadmap. And part 5 is about like, okay, here's how you're going to start taking the steps towards those goals. You know what the map is, you know where your destination is. Part 5 is about just like getting over all the mental blocks and just going out and doing the thing. So this is a rough draft for me as far as like book reviews. I don't know if anybody's watched any of my previous 12 gauge challenges, but this is something I've been wanting to do. And yeah, so bear with me if you're watching this review. I really enjoy this book. I want to do it justice, but I am a rookie when it comes to this YouTube thing. So there's gonna be a rough edit, but there's definitely some value to this book that I want to share with you guys. So stay tuned for part 1, which is, oh my god, I'm gonna have to cut this. Part 1, which is how you got this way. And yeah, so here we go. Alright, so for each one of the parts, I wrote notes for each main point and things that I felt were valuable when I was basically reviewing over the book again. I'm going to go into depth on, I guess, the things that I found very valuable and just share those with you as quickly as possible. But like I said, this is a rough edit, rough book review. These will eventually get better, but I just need to get content out and get comfortable on camera. But anyways, back to the review. Part 1's about how our subconscious brain rules over us. And what your subconscious brain is, it's the thing that's running the show. We have our conscious brain, which is, you know, how you think of things. Like my conscious brain knows that this is a book, but my subconscious brain is beating my heart. It's allowing me to actually see the book. And it's what's running behind the scenes that you don't really think about. And she has this quote in the book that's I really enjoy. It's like, your conscious brain thinks it's running everything, but it's not. But your subconscious brain is running everything, but it doesn't think about anything. Butchered that quote. I should have looked back on it, but anyways, you get the point. So basically, it goes into depth about like how you're filled up with all like these different views and thoughts from a young child, or when you were a young child, about how the world operates, and it gets stored within your subconscious brain, but you don't consciously think about it, and that's what's running you all throughout your life. And until you become consciously aware of those things, they're going to be running you till the day you die. So, this is the quote. No matter how smart the conscious mind thinks it is still being run by the subconscious. Our conscious mind thinks it's in control, but isn't. Our subconscious mind doesn't think about anything, but is in control. So, yeah. So if you think of it that way,
kind of helps you better understand what the two, I guess, brains are. And so basically, she goes into depth about like no matter what you want out of life, if you have a negative subconscious belief about getting that goal accomplished, let's say you want to make more money, but if you have a negative subconscious belief that money is inherently evil, or basically if like your parents or like whoever, your grandparents, uncle, whatever, whoever had a big influence on your life as you were growing up, and if they were constantly talking bad about money and being like, oh, money's the root of all evil, people who have money are terrible, it's never around and I can never get ahead, you're going to develop this belief system in your brain as a young child that, oh, money's inherently evil, even though it's just a piece of paper, and people who have money are bad people. But it's not true, because there's a lot of people who have a lot of money that are generous, that are caring, that, have very positive traits. And money's just an object. And later on in the book, she really goes into depth about that. But as far as like part one goes, she really goes into depth about like, I guess, all the different frequencies that you could tap into. So like there's the negative frequency of, like, for example, like the money issue. You could tap into that frequency of constantly thinking, okay, I want to make more money, but you're tapped into the frequency that money's bad. So there's subconsciously, you're just going to constantly, even when you get the money, you're going to spend it all. You're going to find a way to blow it all away, because deep down, there's that subconscious belief that's running you that goes, I don't care what your conscious brain says, that, oh yeah, it would be nice to have more cash laying around. Your subconscious would be like, no, because your subconscious is going to think like, oh, money's the root of all evil. And there's that kind of battle between the two brains. And until you kind of get a grip on that, it's going to be running you for the rest of your life. So she goes into depth about like how certain vibrations attract other vibrations, kind of like a law of attraction type of, I guess, ideas, if anybody's kind of familiar with that within the self-help realm. And how you can't fool the universe, because the universe sees everything. So if deep down your heart, like, you still think money's the root of all evil, it's not going to give it to you. So you have to kind of like work from within out, I guess. And she has like different stories about like how like she stepped out of basically that fear mentality and pushed through. And basically, let's see my notes, how basically that BS, it'll kind of like, it'll ruin your life until you kind of take charge of it and go, okay, no, I'm in control. This isn't taking over anymore. And you have to almost like forge a new identity in order to get what you want. But part one's mainly about that, about like, there's something else that's controlling you that you're not aware of. And until you get control over that, anything you do in life, it's all going to stem back to that subconscious belief. And no matter how far you go, they'll always drag you back until you go, okay, what's the root of this issue? What happened, when I was younger that made me believe that this is something wrong, when I just have to, like, basically she goes into depth on reframing it to being like, okay, there's a positive aspect. And once you tap into that positive aspect, your life and all around well-being increases exponentially. So, yeah, and the main message of this book, I believe, is just loving yourself, because like when you love yourself, everything else goes great. Anyways, so that was like the gist of part one. Yeah, so on to part two, how to embrace your inner badass. All right. So in part two, she really, which is how to embrace your inner badass, she really goes into depth about self-love and the power of it. She really dives deep on, I I guess the roadblocks that you face as, I guess, trying to become more in tune with who you are and developing that self-love, because it's hard, like when, especially like when you're first starting off in this I guess kind of realm. There's a lot of things that you get locked in your brain why you shouldn't love yourself, why you shouldn't like the things that you do, because I don't know, there's just a lot of BS, as she quotes in the book, that kind of holds you back from really I guess achieving that self-love. And she goes into depth about like comparing yourself to others and the detriment that has. And also I guess in part two, she has this story of this loincloth man that she found while she was out hiking with her friends, and how like unapologetic he was about his lifestyle. It was like this, I guess he was like this businessman that was rich in LA, or maybe a lawyer or something. I've really got to reread this. I'm doing book review. But anyways, goes into depth about like how he gave it all up just to live in the forest. And her friend had met him like while she was off, like just on the hiking trail, and then she came back to their campsite and was like, "You wouldn't believe who I found." And they're like, "Oh, you're full of it." And then they he eventually shows up, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" And it was impressive on how unapologetic he was, I guess, about who he was and what he was about. And she found respect in that. And I found respect reading it, because I was like, oh wow, this guy, he doesn't care, but he's doing what he loves anyways. And so yeah, so she really goes into depth about loving yourself no matter what, even if you're a loincloth man. Anyways, so that's like the gist of part two. All right, and part three is titled How to Tap into the Mother Lode. So within this section, she really goes deep into meditation and what that actually does for your life. And when you finally get to, I guess, silence everything around you, you attract the things that you want, and it's almost effortless when they appear. So she's got some funny stories of just different meditative moments that she's had, like while doing yoga, and also like, I guess, like, I don't know. It's basically how to, like, forgiveness and really centering yourself. It gets rid of a lot of the, I guess, tension. I don't know how to phrase this right. It's, yeah, basically the importance of meditating and how that's gonna basically speedline you to whatever your goal is. And so, yeah, that's kind of like the gist of part three. Obviously, like, you read the book, it's gonna go into more depth. I'm just trying to cut down time on this interview or this review. Man, this is getting rough. Anyways, yeah, so that's the gist of part three, is just that gratitude and being thankful for where you're at, no matter where you're at, even if you're, I guess, living in a box somewhere. There's something to be grateful for, and once you do that, you only go up from there. So that was my big takeaway from part three. Anyways, so on to part four. All right, and in part four, it's how to get rid of your BS already. So kind of went into depth about like what the BS is. She calls it the big snooze, and it's basically, it's that subconscious fear. It's all that built up negative energy that's gonna constantly pull you away from whatever it is that you want. And so she goes into depth about basically honing in on that, finding out what that is. What is your BS that's holding you back? Some people, like, like I said, it could be fear of money, fear of, intimacy, whatever the case may be. She really goes into depth about, that it's all BS. And like, once you become consciously aware of that, then your life starts moving forward. And basically, like, that faith will always override fear. She talks about this story where she wanted to buy a new car, and she really wanted the Audi. She couldn't afford it at the time, and what is it? So she went to like this Honda dealer. Like, she had test drove the Audi and was like, oh wow, like I fell in love with this car. I know it's out of my price range, but I really want it. And she eventually went to the Honda dealer and like tried to test out like the CRV or something, and she was like, I can't do it. Not after driving the Audi. But she knew she didn't have the funds for the Audi. But she had been doing so much, I guess, like self-work, and, you know, she decided to be like, you know what, screw it. I'll find a way. If I really want this car, I'll find a way to afford it. And so she takes the leap and puts it out on, like, gets the lease for the car. And she decided to basically move past the fear and let faith kind of override it. And lo and behold, when she did that, she got new clients, and, you know, it was the universe worked in her favor because it saw that, like, wow, like, she really wanted this, and she was willing to basically just throw it out on the table for it. And yeah, so that helped inspire me. Like, when I read it, I was like, oh, okay. And I have a similar story where basically I wanted like this one car, and I couldn't afford it at the time. Like, I was still in high school. I just sold my previous car, and it's not like an Audi or anything like that. It's like a cheap like Hyundai sports car, but it was something I always like wanted to drive. Like, while I was still in high school, I always wanted to have like some kind of like sporty vehicle to go to school with, and I couldn't afford it at the time. But I just decided to be like, screw it. Like, I just read this book, and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. And this was right when I was starting off like professionally as an actor, and I was going on like commercial auditions, and I just told myself, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna land a job in Hollywood, and that's what's gonna pay for this car. And although it took me like probably like 6 months or so, I landed that job. I landed a Samsung job, and it paid for the car, and I didn't have to deal with the car payment anymore, and I didn't have to get a job, or basically didn't have to work. But that's a whole nother story. I'm already going off on a tangent. But it just goes to show you that, like, yeah, when you do step past fear and you let faith override it, good things will happen. It may not happen right away, but further down the line, you'll get rewarded for it. And yeah, I still own that car today. So yeah, part 4. Just get rid of your BS already. So yeah, on to part 5. All right, and part 5 is just how to start kicking some ass. And I really like this. Like, she goes in basically, I keep saying this, going into depth. She goes into depth on a lot of things, but she really puts it in a very entertaining manner of like, just get off your ass and just start going for it. And it's super motivating, and it's all in a realm of like, you know, it's not like, oh, like, you're a loser, get off your ass. It's very, very loving and kind-hearted, but also like, get off your ass and go do something. Like, it's like, I don't know, I can't explain it very well. I need to work on these book reviews, obviously, but the main message is do what you love, but love yourself first. I think that's what I got from it. And yeah, all in all, I really enjoyed reading this book. It's something I always go back to. I unfortunately didn't have the time to reread it before this book review. Probably a bad idea, but I just want to get more content out. And this is something that I've read countless amount of times. I even had the audiobook that I listened in my car whenever I got like a long drive, either to like LA or something, and I need some extra motivation. This was always like my go-to, and it still is. I'm just too nervous, I guess, to really share with you all the wisdom and knowledge that I gained from it. Hopefully I could come back to this and build a more more steady review and something a little more grounded and more, I guess, detailed about the lessons that I've learned. But all in all, You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, I give it, maybe, 5 stars. I mean, I hate being biased or, this is my first book review, but this is one of my favorite books of all time. I still find it so entertaining. Every time I read it, I get a smile and I learn something new every time. So if I could keep doing that, then 5 stars. I mean, maybe I gotta work on my scaling, but all in all, I do recommend this book to anybody who's looking to improve their life. It really helped motivate me to get off my own ass and stop doubting myself. I think that was like the main takeaway I got from this, and how to love myself. That's something that they don't teach you that in school. They teach you all this different story. Obviously, there's good portions in school. But I feel like this should be first, Hey, love yourself first, and then go work on all the technical skills, if that's what you're into. Anyways, kind of a rant. But that's what I got away from this. Every time I read it, it kind of warms my heart and reminds me to love myself and really just get over my BS already. And I feel like I'm getting over my BS by making this video, because I've been telling anybody who's been following the 12 Gauge Challenge, they know I've been saying, I'm going to make videos that aren't related to the 12 Gauge Challenge, and I'm finally doing it. Whether this is good, whether this is shit, I made it. And if you're viewing this, hey, be sure to leave a comment, maybe subscribe. Tell me how good it was. Tell me how shit it was. Either way, I feel good that I made this review. I love this book. I love Jen Sincero, and I love myself. Anyways, if you like the content, be sure to like, subscribe. I'm always doing these 12 Gauge challenges, so feel free to look at those. If not, then, hasta la vista. Glad that you stayed around for this long. So, You're a Badass. 100% recommend. Read it. It'll change your life. Anyways, till next time. Adios.